Dear friends, lie to Deep. To Deep was very uneasy when she learned that James left her. Did James have a reso? To Deep walks out into the guard. Imble hands, picking green gourds hanging on the scaffold. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but she did not stop her hand. She needs to quickly bring these beetle nuts to the market. To sell today is an important day, because she wanted to earn some extra money to help out at night in times of trouble. James, the man she loves, CEO of a large corporatio, facing the threat of prosecution. His hydroelectric dam project collapsed after a large sum of capital was suddenly withdrawn, causing the project to stop. Workers lost their jobs, and a series of legal troubles came. The person behind it all is none other than Joe, a man full of hatred towards James' family. James is racing against time to find a way to save the company and himself. I called Chotu on his right hand to hire the best lawyer. Can help you turn things around. But everything seems to be going into To Deep hand. Meanwhile, To Deep continues to be busy with farm work. She knew she couldn't help James legally, but she can give him a spiritual support. A place for me to return to when I'm tired. James has planned to see her today. Bring a bouquet of fresh flowers as a small gift of encouragement. But when he got home, she wasn't there. He stood in the yard looking at the simple house, feeling invisible loneliness. This is the most difficult time of his life, and the only thing he wanted was to see her. Finding the purple leaf, James had to leave. He has an important appointment with Law Yurha, who can help you resolve the case. When he arrived at the law office, his eyes were full of seriousness. James, I have reviewed the entire file. The situation is not very good. John's withdrawal only caused the project to stagnate, but also make him responsible before the law for breach of contract with the state. James clenched his fist. He knew John had him cornered. But I can't give up. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a group of angry workers marched on James's house, asked him to pay them for the months they had worked. They do not accept the project being cancelled without being properly compensated. Trouble keeps coming until the police officially came to James' house with an arrest warrant hold. When this news reached To Deep, her heart felt like it was being squeezed. She immediately ran to the police station, hoping to see James. Can their love overcome this challenge? To Deep wiped the sweat from his forehead, carefully arranged the gourds in the basket, and carried them to the market. Today she got up early in the morning to harvest, hoped to earn some extra money to help family and save a little in case James needs it. The familiar, small village road stretched out before my eyes. Green fields on both sides of the road evokes a sense of peace, but into To Deep's heart, a big storm was forming. She knew James was in trouble, but unimaginable. Everything is so serious. In the city, James sat in the office, pensive eyes looking out the window. Bustling city, he can soon become a stressful and dangerous place if you do not resolve the problem quickly. He picked up the phone and dialed the number of Tua, his close assistant. Tua, I need you to find a good lawyer immediately. Attorney Ha is a good choice, but I want to add one more person. This is not simple. On the other end of the line, Tuan urgently answered, I understand, James. I will contact you immediately. James hung up the phone, his eyes looking tired. I know. John was the one who manipulated the entire withdrawal, but you can't publicly accuse him when there is no clear evidence. A moment later, the secretary reported that there is a group of workers standing outside. The company requests to see you. James frowned, knowing they came to demand their wages. As he walked down the hall, The workers looked at him with angry eyes. A middle-aged man stepped up in an indignant voice. "Director James, tell us why. The project was cancelled. We have put our sweat and tears into this project." All fired without any explanation. James kept his voice calm. "I understand everyone's frustration, but the problem is beyond my control. I am looking for a solution." Another worker was so angry. "Who would believe you if you said that? We have families to support. You can't just say a few words and then brush it off like that." The situation became more tense. James took a deep breath. "Understand that if not resolved soon, things will get more and more complicated." Afternoon. After temporary settlement with the group of workers, James drove to Deep's house. "I know I need some peace, and only she can give him that." He got out of the car, holding a fresh bouquet of flowers. But when he stood in front of the door, he realized the door was locked. James looked around the strangely quiet house. A feeling of loss rose in his heart. He sat down on the steps with a bouquet of flowers on his lap, thinking about the difficult days ahead. But then he got up and left. "I have an important appointment with Liao Yuhua." At the law office, James explained everything to Halaya. Ha frowned and spoke seriously. He knew this was not just a normal withdrawal. John seemed to have planned very carefully to put him in a difficult position. The question is, what evidence do you have to prove it? Did he manipulate other shareholders? James shook his head. "I don't have it yet, but I believe he is the one behind it all." Ha pondered for a moment and then said, "We need a good strategy. I will review the terms of the contract first. Hydroelectric dam project to find legal loopholes. But you have to prepare yourself mentally, because the police will most likely get involved." James nodded anxiously. As expected, just a few days later, the police came to James' house. Officer holding arrest warrant. Cold eyes looked at James. "James, we have a warrant for your arrest for breach of contract caused serious consequences." James did not resist. "Just calmly raise your hand to the remaining police." Continuous flashing lights from reporters. When land news reached Tighter to Deep, she panicked and dropped the basket of gourds on the ground. James E. was arrested. She rushed home with her heart beating wildly. She couldn't believe it. The man she loves is facing prison. To Deep knows. This is the time she has to be stronger than ever. Police siren, the noise, broke the peaceful atmosphere of the neighborhood. James was escorted into the car. His face remained calm. Reporters jostled to raise their microphones toward him. "Keep asking questions, Mr. James. Do you know what you are accused of? Is his hydroelectric dam project really a scam? What is your comment on your company going bankrupt?" James did not answer. His cold eyes looked into the distance. He knew that if he wanted to clear all the charges, he had to be patient too. Deep hurriedly ran to the police station in extreme anxiety. When she arrived, James was taken into the interrogation room. She tried to see the police officer on duty, but was refused. "Sorry, Miss James is under investigation, and no one is allowed to see him. But I am his girlfriend," Deep said in a trembling voice. The policeman shook his head and said, "I'm sorry." Deep bit her lips. Helplessness welling up, she couldn't stand by and watch James suffer such injustice. She must do something. Deep seek out on James' loyal assistant. She knew if anyone understood the situation, it was Tuan. Met her Tuan's side. "Mr. Deep and Mr. James are in big trouble. We hired Lloyd Yorho, but this case is very difficult." John manipulated the whole situation, causing James to be seen as the mastermind. caused damage to the project. Tadeep clenched his hands and said firmly, "I don't believe James did anything wrong. He must have been framed. I will do everything to help him." Tuan looked at her with admiration. "I know that the Tadeep's love for James is very great. Okay, I will try to collect evidence. But she should also prepare herself mentally. Things could be worse before it gets good." Tadeep nodded. She is not afraid of difficulties. As long as there is a ray of hope, she will not give up. In a luxury office, John sat cross-legged on the chair, hand holding a glass of wine, eyes filled with triumph. His assistant came in and bowed his head to report, "Sir John James has been arrested. His company is in turmoil. No one dares to invest anymore." Dunn laughed coldly and shit well, to see what else he can do now. He stood up and slowly walked to the window, looking down at the city lights in his eyes. This is not just a business war, but also personal revenge. He must pay for what his family has done with my family. Don muttered, clutching the glass of wine in his hand. In prison, James sat on the cold iron bed. Nightfall's darkness covers the surrounding space. He closed his eyes, trying to stay calm. But then the image of the Astor appeared in his mind. "I miss the time," she smiled gently. "Remember the peaceful days together. I cannot fall." He must find a way to clear his name and return to her. Outside, Tadeep is still searching for clues. She went to see the shareholders who had withdrawn their capital, try to find out if anyone is being forced. She knew John couldn't manipulate everything by himself. He must have all his time is running out. If no evidence found, James is likely to be sentenced to 5 years in prison. Will she be able to save him before it's too late? The story of James and Tadeep is a challenging journey of love, loyalty, and perseverance. As James faces a 5-year prison sentence, he not only had to fight to prove his innocence, but also to protect what you love. Tadeep has no power or money, but with intelligence and determination, she did not give up on James. She not only tried to clear his name, but also stood by him in the most difficult times. The mastermind behind all the plots may have achieved its original goals, but the truth cannot be hidden forever. Justice will be done, and only those who persevere in righteousness is the winner. Final. The story finally asks the question, ask if love can overcome all. And the answer is yes. If it is true love, it will not be affected by money, fate, or wealth. We will see what happens next. Let's predict together in the next episode. Thank you.